first day with the shoulder pads?
Yeah.
A little more physical?
Yeah, I mean, you can actually, I guess, do a little bit more, or, I mean, we do a lot without shoulder pads, but, I mean, it's a little bit more realistic looking when you have shoulder pads on, as you're trying to teach things, and you can teach it at a little bit more normal pace.
Looking back at yesterday's split session, how beneficial was that to see the freshmen get a lot of reps and other guys that would normally?
No, it's good. I mean, to be honest with you, reps are almost the same in group and team periods. When you count them up, they're identical in practices. Of when you're split practice or a full squad practice, everybody gets identical reps. The part that changes is the individual. When you're not doing the team stuff, because those reps are the same. It is, you're looking at, receivers doing drills. There's a much smaller amount of them there. So the detail that you're doing, instead of the speed you're having to do with it with those bigger numbers, is what changes. And so I think that's why, we're split practice again tomorrow, especially early on when you're doing a lot of individual teaching, that you get a lot more focused reps on groups.
Saw J-Man had a lot of catches last night, so you look like you kind of continue making some improvements.
I hope so, yeah. I mean, that's all to me based on the coverage and play call you got. What play you step in on the rotation is who catches it, not by any design to throw to a player. It's by throw to a position.
We heard a lot in the spring about how he improved the route running, kind of started to get a little bit. Is there some carryover to this August with that? I mean, is he where you want him to be at this point in his career with
Sure.
that?
It's too hard to say because we really only just did our second install today. So, as you put in more, we'll see how he develops with that stuff. But I do think he now has kind of accepted the role of being a receiver. Not that he didn't before being a receiver, but I think he viewed himself as an athlete and kind of give me the ball and I can make plays. And now I think he understands that he has to be a wide receiver as well.
On the defensive side, freshman quarter, I'm blanking on his name, but I'm trying to ask the question. Cedric Giles, yeah, made a lot of big plays. Real athletic out there.
Yeah, I think a lot of our freshmen are athletic. But again, it's, there's a lot of great athletes out there. Doesn't mean you're going to be a great football player right now. So, it is to see how he absorbs the information. Because you can be as athletic as you want and you go the wrong way, guy's going to be wide open. So, that part of it all that's where a big part of it. But I think, when you look at our team, I think we have a fairly athletic team. And I think, I look back to year one when I first got here to now, I think we're much more athletic than we were then. Now, doesn't mean we're going to be better football players. We got to make sure that we're better football players as well. That's important too.
I'm curious with those young guys, how you avoid preconceived notions before you ever get into camp. Because I'm sure conversations we had about player X or true freshman that, wow, that red shirt may not happen. We may have to pull that because he's performing at a level we didn't think he'd be at right now.
Well, you got to think the culture shock for freshmen is huge. You're talking about guys that were the best players on the field week in and week out during their high school career. And if they weren't the best player on the field, they were playing another great player. They're one of the top 2 or 3 guys that are on the field in any given game. Probably the best player at their school. And on top of it, throw into what's become just the absolute media hype of recruiting, where kids have press conferences and all this stuff. And then they show up here, and they're 18-year-old kids going against 22-year-old men that have been training and lifting for 4 years, that understand the speed of the game, are bigger, faster, stronger. That's a major culture shock for these kids. They go from being this absolute superstar to, when they walk on the field, well, I'm not the biggest guy anymore. I'm not the fastest guy anymore. Everybody's as big and as fast as I am. And the mentality that comes with that is sometimes tough. And, and it's, I think the one is when you look at redshirting, it is their ability, one, how fast they grasp all the information too, and how they deal with that change of understanding that, hey, I'm not the most dominating guy in the field. I better do things exactly right in my role, and if I do that, I can play.
How often do those conversations happen where that kid maybe beats those odds and says?
A lot.
You know,
We'll have freshmen play. I think we've had freshmen play every year that I've been here. So, I mean, that will happen. And, and I think a lot of times, the funny one, it'll happen with the guys that you don't always think it's going to happen with.
Right, exactly.
That's the tricky one, because, you look at high school kids, they all have 0 stars now. They're all back to 0 stars. And, I guess you can go call up the Colts and see where they have them rated right now. That's their next rating system that they get. And I bet they probably have a big old 0 next to their name right there. So, it's them adapting to that and going, hey, I got to go really hard if I want to succeed in college.
You talked a lot, last year with quarterback rotation about how you just do what you feel at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Dak is kind of taking this approach, at least we're talking to the media, about how he's going in, he thinks Tyler's the guy, but he's going in saying, I'm competing to get more playing time based on situations. Is it good to hear that? He's kind of bought into that, and also how do you see him kind of filling in the gaps there with Tyler, maybe some things that maybe he can't necessarily do athletically?
Yeah, well, there's the 2 aspects. One is the mentality of getting a guy that's going to be a redshirt freshman ready to be our starter, because you better have 2 starting quarterbacks. Because you're a play away from him having to be the guy. So he has to have that mentality, but also that mentality of knowing that he is going to get in the game either way, that there will be a package for him. And I think he knows, and I think that can make you a little bit more relaxed in knowing that you're going to play, and you're going to play in doing things that you do well. I think he'd be a little bit more nervous if he knew he was going to be the starter game 1, and which he might still be. I don't know. We got a lot of practices, and
Really?
You never know. I don't know. Tyler could trip out of the slide coming out of the shower today and hurt his shoulder. That's as crazy as it is. Those injuries occur, and there's the chance that happens. And he always has to keep that mindset. But I think it helps him knowing going in that he's not taking a backup mindset. He's taking a mindset in, I'm going to get some playing time, so I got to make sure I'm ready to play.
Danico Autry, first-year guy, but he's got a lot of experience, been here in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a guy you see maybe being like more of a third-down guy early on that kind of can develop to take more snaps, or what are you hoping for about Danico?
I'm hoping he's a starter. And you look at the guys, and most junior college guys that we've recruited in the last couple of years since I've been here, from back with Purnell and Heath Hutchins, Leon Berry, Vic, Chris White. You're looking at guys that we all brought those guys in to play immediately or play a lot or start. And that's one of the things we look for with junior college players. And I look with a guy like Danico. I think he has a great work ethic. He has ability. So we brought him in here to be the starter, not to be a situational guy.
It seems like Shane, too, has responded to that because he's gotten bigger, stronger, and more aggressive.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he has. And, and I think, a guy like Shane has finally got it figured out. I think Shane, we're always, let's fight to keep the weight on or keep your size on or that, and that's not it anymore. He's got it figured out, and I think he's gotten used to playing a little bit bigger. So, hopefully we get him back to kind of that pass, where you look at he knows his specialty is pass rushing. Where he gets really back to being great at doing that.
You mentioned the overall athleticism of the team, talking about that. Does that particularly apply to linemen? Because just the transition the last couple of years, you've got a bunch of big guys, and they all can move, and some can really run.
Well, that's a huge part of it. In this league, I think that's what most people would say, and I would agree, is that what separates the SEC from other leagues is the speed of the big guys, the athleticism of the big guys. And if we're going to compete, our big guys better be really athletic too.
You're going split squad tomorrow, but when you get those full pads on, is that the moment you figure out, all right, this guy's slack a little bit, I got to get these guys going a little bit more? What do you...
No, you can see that now. Once you put the pads on, you can see, because once there's shoulder pads, there's contact. Yeah. And either you love contact or you hate contact. There's... I don't know. I used to relate it to, it's like driving over the George Washington Bridge going into New York City. Right? Either you're really scared or you're really excited. Most people, you get very few reactions I've ever seen with anybody say, yeah, I could take it or leave it, whatever. You know, I love it or I hate it. You know, it's got that big city excitement feel to it. So when you put the pads on, either you love it or you hate it.
You guys go to the farm. You guys figure that out.
Is it Monday? On Tuesday. What day is today?
Don't go into that.
It's Sunday.
Today is Sunday.
Well, we don't go to the farm tomorrow, so we go Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay. So Monday when they all get in their hotel and do all
Yeah,
that?
we're going to the hotel. We move into the hotel tomorrow. Final exams end tomorrow. So after finals end, we kind of get in. So I mean, there's guys. You know, we talked about that today after practices. For some guys, we're in training camp mentality. There's other guys we're not quite there yet because they still have finals to take. That, you know, once you hit training camp mentality, I mean, it's just football consumes your life. You know,
Yeah.
for that 2 weeks. So.
Can you talk about that a little bit? You see guys tweeting out pictures of them sleeping on air mattresses in the locker room, and they seem to love it. They just love being around everybody. I mean, do you like seeing that? And
I
it's kind
love
of
it.
funny you see it.
Well, you know, I mean, it's something we did a couple years ago just because, you know, I mean, when you're looking and you got a 2-hour break, you don't want to spend 10 minutes in the car each way and have to walk up any stairs. So we just load up the locker room full of air mattresses and they just crash there. But no, I do, you know, these guys, football's such a unique sport in that, today was practice number 3. So we have 26 practices before we play our first game. You know, one of them's your Friday practice. Then when you get in the season, you have 12 weeks of really 3 practices or 4 at most 4 practices a week, right? So, I mean, that's only 48 more, and you get to play, hopefully, 14 games. That's not a lot of opportunity, so you want to see our guys that, you know, when it's the times here, all the time and preparation we put in for it, that they love this time of year. I mean, training camp should be the greatest time of year. You know, they're kind of like NFL players in a way, right? I mean, they don't have to go to school. They don't have to worry about other things. We feed them and give them places to sleep. They have nothing to worry about except football, and I think that's what you want to see. Guys love it.
You guys go full bore tomorrow, tackle the ground and everything? Or
No, we don't. When you're just in shoulder pads, but we rarely.
You're not going full pads tomorrow? About full
No.
pads? No.
One more day.
One more day.
You got to be 5 days
Okay,
before you go full
gotcha.
pads. But even when we go full pads, you know, full tackle to the ground, we're limited in. You know, we thud a lot and do that stuff because, you know, what happens is when you start going full tackle to the ground, if you look, most injuries aren't at the point of contact. Most injuries are when guys are rolling on the ground, the secondary guy they get into is the one that gets hurt. So, you know, that by trying to keep everybody on their feet, that's how you can limit injuries.
You mentioned the junior college guys. I think right tackle might be the spot on the offensive line that is the most sort of a battle. Sitaway and then Robinson, how do you kind of, they're different guys in their process, but both kind of inexperienced and big brains.
Yeah, they're doing good. One of the things, you know, we're always going to try to put the best 5 guys on the field. So if they're 2 of the best 5, one of them's going to have to move somewhere else. You know, I mean, that's going to be the deal. So, you know, right now I think they're competing, and you know, we have them both at right tackle. Someone's got to be a swing guy and be able to learn left. And, you know, so, but I think they're both progressing pretty well. You know, it's going to be, it's a long, hard road when you have guys that are inexperienced because they're going to look fabulous because they have ability one day, and then they're going to look terrible mentally maybe the next day. You know, or they have to, you know, all of a sudden you go to another installation and they start thinking. You know, the worst thing you can ever do on the football field is think. You got either you know it or you don't, you know, and when they start thinking, it gets bad. So all of those things we have to keep getting hammered out, and really after training camp, really the week after training camp, you kind of have that week before you get into game week, we got to start figuring out how we're going to get our best 5 guys on the field in multiple combinations. You know, because you also have to be prepared for injuries. That, you know, if the center goes down, how do we get our best 5 guys on the field? If the left tackle goes down, how do we get our best 5 guys on the field? If making sure we always have those combinations set.
I would imagine you're more excited about the depth, though, across the board, maybe, at that spot, just with the amount of athletes and talent you have.
If we're 100% healthy,
Right.
I feel good about it. You know, the problem is we do have some depth, but you know, with some of the youth that's there, it does make you nervous. I'd love the youth to be into a backup role this year instead of the youth to be forced into a starting role.
Gotcha.
I think Robinson's listed as starting on the depth chart, but is that a pretty even, early, obviously, but
You know how much I would care about. Don't you? That was Joe that put that.
Joe Galbraith depth chart.
The Joe Galbraith depth chart right there.
Joe, yeah.
Did you enjoy driving across?
So if Joe was the head coach, that's how he would do it.
Hey, fluid situation.
Did you like driving across the George Washington Bridge?
Yeah, I love New York City. It's exciting. I only say that as I used to recruit at Columbia University. You'd pick a kid up at Newark Airport. You might be picking a kid. Maybe you're picking a kid up from Mississippi. And I'm driving. I look, and maybe mom's in the back seat or the kid's in the back seat. You can look in that rearview mirror, and there, you know right then you can just turn around and go right back to the airport, or the kid's going to sign on the dotted line. You kind of knew driving over that bridge right then which one it was going to be. So.